All right, so what we did is we talked a little bit about a switch statement. We didn't really get to see it in action here. And what it does is essentially it allows us to switch between and return logic, right? So what does that mean? Well, what we'd like to do is whatever text is passed in from the player's user thing. So if they type artist, it's going to save artist in here. And we're going to do this in a second. We're just going to do some code cleanup. And it's going to pass artist into this because these are the same variable types. We're going to just use this to lower here to make sure that artist is all lowercase. And then this switch statement switches between these different cases. And then it does something. All it does, this is a very simple statement, a switch statement, is it's just returning to us back the word. So for example, oh, look, I never even changed this. So this is, yeah, that's right. So if the case, let me hit enter to space these out. So it might read a little bit better here. If they type in detective here, it's just going to return the word detective. That's all this does, right? Like we could have it return more logic, detective, and then plus some other stuff. But that's all this switch statement does. We haven't done anything. We haven't used it. It's just living in a separate script. We have a variable up top here, and this variable type is called player type selector. And all this will do is give us access here. And what we did is we put this script on top of this, and we dragged this script into here to make sure that these two scripts are connected. So inside of our start function here, what I think I'm going to do, or sorry, inside of our update function here, is I'm going to take this logic where we're always checking if the tab key is pressed. And if it is, then we're going to call this onSubmit method. And then we're going to use our onSubmit method to do two things. Check if our name has been entered. And then we're also going to check, we're going to use, well, let's get into that first. Let's take a look at this logic. So I'm just going to grab this entire if statement here, hit Control C, and put it above my if statement here. And then I'm going to hit enter here. Now, this is a shorthand way of writing this. So the open close curly braces and then another curly brace here. This is a shorthand way. If you only have a single statement here, what you can do is you can delete these and then just backspace all the way to the top, hit enter, and this will do the same thing. So it's going to say if our tab key is pressed, use onSubmit. So I'm going to hit save here. And like right now, what's going to happen is instead of onSubmit being called right away, it's going to wait for me to press the tab key to call onSubmit. So let me go ahead and press play. And what you'll notice is this is not going to change at all. In our previous tutorial, this changed right away. Oh, it looks like it. Oh, no. Yeah, it's changed because on start we have please enter your name and press tab. Now, again, this code is not going to get called unless this tab key is pressed. So it sort of works the same. So I'm going to hit Alex, I'm going to hit tab. And what happens is it registered the tab here, it called onSubmit, and then it jumped in here and it said if the key is pressed, then run this code. So notice it says, welcome to your adventure. Well, it registered that tab twice. So if I get rid of this, if I add a Boolean here, let's take a look at this. And I'm just going to hit Control D here. And then I'm going to press enter because I don't want these part of that header. And I'm going to say public BOOL, that's short for Boolean. And I'm going to name this is asking for name. And it's giving me an error here. And the reason for that is because this can only store four things: a 0, a 1, or a true or a false. So true and 0 or true and 1 are the same and false. So if I click on this, you can see it's saying, hey, you can't convert string to type Boolean. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to type true here, and I'm going to hit S to save this. And I want to show you something. When we go back inside of here, you'll notice that it doesn't necessarily register this as a string of text called true. It registers it as a check mark. So I'm going to change is asking for name here. And I'm going to go ahead and change if input here to is asking for name, right? So you can see it says string entered, input text field, trim. And then it's saying if string null, empty, all this stuff, right? So what's going to happen is I'm going to uncheck this. So this is set to false. And remember, this only runs if this is set to true, right? And so this logic in here is this. If this is true, we're going to say entered name equals whatever the input field is that's here, right? So if I type Alex, it should store it inside of here. It's going to check if it's empty. It's going to set that to the entered name. And it's supposed to call this method next where it's saying, welcome Alex, here, what is your player type? So none of this code should run at this point because this Boolean value, even though it's set to true here, I unchecked it to false here. So I'm going to go ahead and hit Control S and I'm going to press play here. And right off the bat, I'm going to type, it's going to ask me for my name because that's in start. That's going to run regardless, right? Please enter your name. So I'm going to go ahead and type Alex and I'm going to hit tab and nothing is happening. But if I check this on and I hit tab, you could see it registered this as true. So here it's saying if is asking for name. Now notice, it says welcome, to your adventure type. What I generally do anyway, just to for cleanliness, is I'll go ahead and clear out that string anyway. Like after they enter their name, I'll clear out that string when they press, when they enter that string, and then I hit tab again to enter my name. So I'll clear that string. Or actually, you know what? Let's leave that in there. I think that's fine. Let's leave that text in there. So once they enter their name here, right? And I'm going to get rid of this because I don't want to clear that string right away. So let's go ahead. Actually, we'll move this up here. We'll leave that in there. So they'll enter their name, right? It's going to take that name, right? It's just going to clear the field, and then it's going to plug that, whatever that entered name in here, and it's going to display it. The next thing I want to do is I want to say, hey, I'm done asking for my player's name. So I'm going to set this equal to false. So let's go ahead and see that in action, right? So I'm going to go ahead and check. We're going to look at this is asking for name Boolean here. And we're going to make sure this is checked on because by default it should be true, right? In the logic of our code. So I'm going to press play here. And now what's going to happen? Notice this switch. I'm going to enter Alex and I'm going to hit tab. And you could see it set it to false. And it says, welcome, Alex, to your adventure. What type are you? So I'm going to type artist here, and I'm going to press tab, and nothing's going to happen. So let's build out that logic. So the next part of this is, the reason why I set this to false is because I'm no longer asking for name. I want to create a new state. So for that, I'm going to make another Boolean variable. So I'm going to go up here, and I'm just going to hit Control D here. And honestly, I can actually hit Control D, hold Alt, and move this down, and I can just say player types. This can get a little bit out of control too, where you're just kind of like building these out. But here's like player type, and it would have been nice if they spaced it out a little bit better. But here's, the reason it didn't space it out is because I have an error. So it is asking for type. Now, right off the bat, I want to set this to false. And the reason for that is because I'm not asking for the type right away. I'm asking for the player's name, right? So let's go down here and take a look at this logic, right? So we have a method here called if is asking for name. I want to run this code. So let's go ahead and just, again, space this out a little bit. And what we could use is we could use another if, or we can use an else if. An else if is just an extended if, and it's saying, hey, if this is not true, go to this next one right away, this next if statement right away. So I'm going to write else if, and then I'm going to hit tab to let it opulate that. Now, I want you to take a minute and just pause the video, and I want you to try to figure this out on your own, right? And then I'm going to do it anyway in a second, but I want you to think about this. I want them to be able to go into this script, pick a type, and then we're going to return the type for them to see that, oh, okay, you picked this type. And I also want to be able to say, hey, now that I'm not asking for name, I need to set inside of here, I need to do something where I set the other that I am now asking for the asking for type. I need to set that to true, right? Because now we're no longer asking for a name, we're asking for the player type, which is this. So on this line, I want you to set that to true, and I want you to try to finish this if statement. If you can't, it's totally fine. It'll help you kind of think, play around with it, see if you can figure it out. If you get it wrong, it's completely okay. We're going to do it right now. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and hit is asking for type equals true. So now that this is set to true, so let's go ahead and, again, I'm going to comment this hold by hitting Control KC just so you could see it. So now we have both of these. And this asking for type should not be checked on because I set it to false. And let's make sure that it's false. For some reason, it didn't do this. Not sure why it didn't set it by false, but maybe it's because I duplicated it. So let's press play here. And I'm just going to scroll down. So you can see this is true and this is false here. Here's what my false and true here. So I'm going to type in my name. And then I'm going to hit tab, and you could see now it set this one to false and this one to true, and it displayed this text here. So now when I run this code, so let's go ahead and stop this, and I'd say, okay, I'm going to hit Control Z just to undo that comment. I'm going to grab this as asking for type, and I'm going to paste it in here. Now this code here is going to check if, remember, we have a couple things. The default here is if none of these cases are entered, like I type in hamburger or something, it's going to default to unknown. So we need to use this logic. So now we're really going to learn how to use this switch statement. But first, I need to actually get this player type selector script, right? And within this, I need to actually get access to this determine player type. How do we do that? I'm going to copy this variable name, which again is storing a reference to this script. And remember, a reference means it's referring to something. And I'm going to say, hey, the first thing I want to do is I want to say player type selector, right? So I want to make I want to grab this text here, right? That's telling me which one it is. And that's located inside of the determine player type method. So just bear with me. We made a variable, and I'm actually going to paste this down here to save time, but we made a variable up here called player type, which is just a string. And right now it's grayed out because it's not doing anything. So what I'm going to say here is player type equals player type selector, which is the name of this script, right? This is a variable that's storing a reference to that script. I'm not sure why I did that. Now, how do I access this method, which is public, inside of here? Well, you use the dot operator. So you just put the period, and then it says, hey, I noticed that you have a method here called determine player type. I'm going to hit enter, and it's going to populate that for me. Now, we have an error here because if I click inside of here, it's saying, hey, you have a parameter, but it's invoked with 0 arguments. And that means that we have a parameter here of type string called type text. Well, what I'm passing into this is the player type from here. So what I want to do is say, okay, I'm asking for a player type here, right? Well, we have a variable here up top, which is giving us access to this input field. And if we go far enough inside of our onSubmit method, we have let's see, we have this string here called entered name that's inputting or taking in the input value of our text. So I'm actually going to hit Alt, and I'm just going to move this above my if statement. I'm going to hit Control Alt Enter just to kind of space this out. So this is taking in text, right? So I can use this entered name here, and I could say, you know what, I'm going to copy that entered name because this is registering everything that we put in there. And so we could probably just change this to, I'm going to hit F2 here and just change this to, here, let me hit Control RR maybe. Let's see, F2. Why is it not letting me rename? Tab to replace? Oh, it does it automatically when I hit F2. Okay, we'll name this entered text. Didn't want to do that. I'm going to copy this and just paste this in so we have it's in these 3 areas. So entered text here is storing whatever our entered text is. So I'm just renaming it. So I'm going to copy this and I'm going to pass in whatever our entered text is because this is always being run on submit. We're always checking what text is entered and then we trim whatever's left over. So I'm going to pass entered text into this determine player method here. And then it's going to switch it based on whatever that entered text is. So let's go ahead and test this out. So what I can do is let's just copy this output text here in a bunch of this code. So I'm going to paste this here. And I can say, you have chosen to be and then instead of player name here, I'm just going to copy this. Let's get rid of this comma S and the comma S here. You have chosen to be and then comma, and then we're going to say, we have this player type here, right? This player type is a variable that just stores a bunch of letters. It's of type string. And you have chosen to be a player type, and then comma, we'll put a space there, player name, and then we'll just kind of put that on a new line. And then we'll get rid of all this other junk for now. And then we'll add a little bit more logic in here to make it a little bit nicer. So what we should get is you have chosen to be a detective or artist, and then the name of the player. So let's go ahead and save this and let's test this out. Okay, please enter your name. Okay, my name is Alex D. Tab. Welcome, Alex D, to your adventure game. What type of player are you? I'm going to write Ham. Tab. You have chosen to be a unknown Alex D. Because unknown, remember, is Ham is not part of that list, right? So it's just looking for these. And anything that we type in that's not the same as these, it'll say unknown. So let's try that one more time by putting in one of the real options like cop. And I'm actually, remember, 2 lower makes it lowercase. So I'm going to type in Alex D, tab, and then I'm going to type COP all caps, and then I'm going to hit tab, and it says you have chosen to be a cop because we set it to lower to make sure that it meets one of these options. And we can actually go in here because notice there's no space behind that comma. We can go in here and fix that up as well, right? And that'll give us, we can probably put the comma here. Let's make this even, let's actually say, hey, you can't be unknown. You need to select one of those options. So let's go ahead and wrap this. Let's make an if statement here just to kind of show you. So I'm going to type if, tab, and then below this, I'm going to do an else statement. Now the else statement is, and let me hit tab there. So the thing that's going on here is we know what an if statement is. It just checks if this is true. If this is false, what the else statement does is it just says, hey, if this is not true, just run this, whatever this is. It's different than an else if because else if can also check logic. This cannot check logic. So this is a little bit leaner if you just need just to have an else at the end. You could add it after an else if statement. That's kind of like the default if nothing is true. So I'm going to take this line and I'm going to move it into here and Control Alt Enter. I'm going to hit Control D, hold Alt, and just put this inside of my else statement because we're going to have 2 here. And this first one is just going to say, hey, if player type here is the same as unknown, right? Like we're returning unknown. Let's say they enter unknown here. And that's just checking this player type right here, right? If it's the same as unknown, we could say, you know, I'm not sure what that is. Please select one of the following options. And then what we would do is, let me go ahead and hit enter here. And by hitting enter, it automatically added the plus and then just put on a new line. Please select from one of the following options. In all honesty, we could have just, yeah, I guess we have to kind of concatenate it. And that puts that on a new line. And that's just so I can see it. And then I'll just put ... here because you'll know that would be where you put the name of detective, cop, and all that stuff just to save time. Otherwise, we can say, hey, you've chosen to be this. Now, this video is getting pretty long, so we could say, hey, like one last thing is like, plus your adventure begins. Enter. I'm so used to Slack and all these other ones. Space, we don't want a space. Your adventure begins. What we'll do in the next video is we'll go in here. Well, you just want to test this because this script is getting pretty long now, right? We need to say, hey, you know what? We need to give them the option instead of all this going on inside of unsubmit to say, hey, you know what? You didn't enter it right. Please select one of the other ones. You can't just be an unknown player, which maybe you want them to be, and that would be fine too. But let's go ahead and test this out and just make sure that this works. And we're going to type unknown. So type your name, A tab. I'm not sure what that is. Please select one of the following options. And then we need to restart, right? So they can get that. Let's do it one more time. Please enter your name, A tab, cop, tab. You have chosen to be a cop, A. Your adventure begins. You've chosen to be a cop, and then A is your name. All right, I think that's good for this video. Let's go ahead and save that, and then I'll check in my project and version control. And then what we'll look at in the next video is how we can build more logic and say, hey, you know what, let's give them another shot to enter their name properly.